extermination rooms, Auschwitz and everything, they weren't given like extra money, or they weren't threatened to lose their jobs. They were just giving this, here's a contract, can your company do this? Yes, we can. It has some engineering issues. Yes, okay, let's solve them. Okay, yeah, good. And they were just normal people doing this job. And it's impossible to understand right now, but I think people just do whatever is expected of them in a very huge way. So, but this one is for the second game, which I ended up not making. It's called Judenrat, and which is spelled Judenrat, so I got some bad reactions from that, but it's actually a German word, which means Jewish council. And the Jewish council were the people in the ghettos who were given the job of administering. So you would have like people living there, and you'd have the Nazis, and then you would have the Jews who had to, make sure that everything ran smoothly in the ghetto. So they were in this horrible position in between. And sometimes it was, just make sure this food gets to this place, or these workers get there. And sometimes you have, you have too many people, get some people so we can kill them. And the game would be about that, about the administration and about the decisions you would have to make. And there are some, well, if you want to hear more about it, you should read about it, because I'm going into detail. This is the reason I stopped making these games, because I just didn't want to spend my time delving into the subject matter. It was just too bad. So, other people have also made like Holocaust games. There's a woman called, I think her name is Belinda Brathwaite. She's made a game called Train, which is, it's a happy little game about getting your train to the city in time. And you can guess, that when you get to the city, and it's called Auschwitz or whatever, you understand that, oh shit, it's that kind of game. So she gets a lot of reactions, but I haven't played it, and she's pretty, secretive about the game online, so you don't actually get to read rules or anything. But that's really a work of art. She bought an old SS typewriter for writing the rules, for instance. So it's got a lot of weird. It's a very personal game. So emotional games. Good or bad? I don't know. I have mixed feelings about games with feelings. I once made a game called Catherine, a game about care, which is about a girl with Down syndrome and her dad, and it goes through different scenes where you have to get Catherine to the party. Catherine is going up; she wants to wear makeup. Will you let her or not? It's for 2 players who play this out, and in the end, Catherine dies. And it's a tear-jerking scene. It just makes you cry straight away. But I don't actually want to make games to make people cry. I mean, if they do, that just has to be some sort of. There has to be a reason for it. I want people to either have fun, have a social good time, or to think about the content. But I think that smashing someone with emotion sort of makes them stop thinking often. So it should be done with care. There's not an aim for me to affect people emotionally so strongly that they can't use their rational mind. It's not deep and meaningful in itself if you're crying at a game. It just means you're crying at a game. So, I was hoping Judenrat might make people think, but I'm not sure I believe that will happen. And reading too much about the Holocaust sort of eroded my faith in human learning. And I don't know what your political views are, but for me, when I look at Israel today, I'm not sure people learn anything from anyone. Anyways, enough about that. This is a different game. I was talking about things that maybe aren't games, and this is one. It's called Agabadan, and it used this strange symbol, which you can almost see in the back there. These are some Swedish guys making the Agabadan symbol in a public place. Agabadan doesn't mean anything, the symbol doesn't mean anything. And the aim of the game was to pretend you believe in something that you normally don't believe in, like UFOs or God, or that people have a conspiracy or whatever. So people would make their own belief systems, and they would put their own belief systems and meaning into this Agabadan symbol. So just by repeating it and using it along the way, suddenly it became, pretty heavy with meaning. And that was, a kind of big experiment. It was in different cities in Norway, and it was around in Sweden as well. We had, internet for communication. We were sending packages and pictures in the mail to each other, different challenges, personal challenges you could do if you wanted. And it was a pervasive game, which meant that you would play it in real life. So when I was taking the bus home from the office, I would look at the world through my new eyes and try to, Jesus, hey, this is really weird. My belief was something to do with like nature spirits, and stones were bad and trees were good and stuff. It all emerged along the way and was very meaningful to me. And I actually used this game very consciously to change my life a little bit, because I usually sit indoors too much. So I decided to go for some sort of nature outside game, so I would actually get out in the open air. That worked very well. I got out much more than I usually would. I did a lot of garden work, so my wife was happy. Yeah, and I got a lot of secret messages from the seagulls. Alright, so I've been doing some different things. This is a book I wrote together with my friend Matthijs. He's also a game designer. He's written a Norwegian game called Until We Sink, which has garnered indie attention. And it's very good. And we actually didn't decide to write a book together at all. What happened was that a childhood friend of mine from Stavanger, he grabbed me once when we were drunk and said, hey, you have to make a role-playing game for me. And I was like, yeah. So, but he's an editor at a big publishing house. So we started talking about this for serious. And I started making some prototypes. And they were more and more into, choose your own adventure things, because we wanted something easy for new beginners and for young kids to play. And then I got my friend Magnus in on it, and we were designing and making this thing that was actually pretty cool. But then the publisher said, yeah, these guys write very well, let's make them make a novel instead. Which might have just been an excuse for we're not publishing games right now. But so we ended up changing the whole game thing into a novel. And after we'd written the novel with the two boys, the publisher said, yeah, maybe one of the boys should be a girl, so we rewrote the whole thing. But we made a very conscious decision that even though one was a boy and one was a girl, there would be no romantic tension, and the girl would be exactly the way she was as a boy, which was very interesting. We picked the least girlish of the two boys to make into the girl. You can see her in the back there, the one with the blackish hair. And it's strange what happens when you put a boy and a girl in a story, because you see this picture, obviously the boy is in the front, I mean the girl is in the back. We actually had to ask the designer to remove the hand from the boy pushing the girl to the back, because they're both active in the story. I don't know why this guy has to be in the front, but this is how it worked out. So, gender and role-playing and fancy, big issues. Alright, yeah, so we decided, we found out along the way that playing with stories the whole time makes it very easy for you to make plots and make drama, and especially it makes it fun to do, because you can write your character into like really shitty situations and then find a way out. I mean, we were challenging ourselves and each other with this the whole time, which was fun, but on the other hand, it takes a lot of time. It's like really, really hard work to write a novel, because you have to write it again so insanely many times and go over it so many times. You get so sick of your own book after a while. And when it was published, I picked it up and I started reading it, and I didn't know. It was like I hadn't written it. It was someone who's made this book. It's pretty cool. This is not my text. But obviously it is. It's a very good book. If you ever learn Norwegian, you should read it. Alright, sorry about the horrible slide quality. I lost for some reason, some of the pictures disappeared when I transferred the slides, so I had to Google this last night, and this was what I came up with because the game is out of print. It's from Lærerist, which is a motivational role-playing game for schools. It was designed by a guy called Rune Andersen. It's getting stuffy in here, is it? Can we open doors and windows or something? Or are you guys alright? Do you think it's stuffy? Maybe I'm just the one who's stuffy. We can just wave our hands. As I was working as a programmer, and I met this guy doing that, and he had decided he would get rich writing role-playing games for schools, and I was like, yeah, good luck. But then later he contacted me because he'd gotten like state funding. He's really good at talking, so he got like people on board, and he got funding for the project, and he set up this business, and I started working for him, and we made some really good books. we had a game system that was way too complex to begin with. He had modeled it on Dungeons and Dragons, and teachers, if you worked as a teacher, or if you know teachers, you know they're wonderful people, but they're not over-eager to take on more work or new ways of teaching always. Not everyone is very open to that, so if you give them a book full of tables and numbers and weird dice and say this is a game and your students will love it, a lot of people won't try it. But he got people to try it, and it worked, but we had to modify the system strongly for the teachers to actually be able to run it. So we made a very, very basic role-playing system. Everything pre-generated characters, pre-generated, very railroaded scenarios. Roll the dice here, do this, do that. Very little branching or choices. The kids loved it, and the teachers saw that it had this effect, because the point is that you get experience points for doing schoolwork, and the harder you work at school, the better your character levels are. It's very transparent, you know, and it's not like we're fooling kids because they understand straight away that this is something they do to make us work. But hey, you know, it beats just sitting at school and doing boring things. It's better to do fun things, so they like it, and it works. It works. We didn't say this at the time because it sounds, we wanted it to be like for everyone, but it's probably the best for motivating kids who, for some reason, don't like school or don't learn well. Like people with disabilities, unruly boys, very, very good for unruly boys. And of course the geeks in the class. Our problem is the geeks in the class, they already play role-playing games and think this is way too simple. But for them also it's better to do this than other stuff. So it's very great for getting a good environment in the class, for motivation. If you actually want people to learn, it's okay, I mean, it gives them learning, but if you really want them to learn, you need to bake the learning material into the scenarios. So that you don't say, okay, calculate this curve, you say, okay, your dragon is going to fly west and you need to bring so and so many barrels of gunpowder. How much can your dragon carry? And if you calculate wrong, your dragon crashes and dies and you don't have a dragon. And if you do it, of course, you get the gold from the evil elves you're bombing. So that worked very well. We did exactly that in the class, and their grade average for that class was raised by 1 from, I don't know what systems you have. I think we have from 1 to 6. When they had like a 2, they were horrible, and they went to 3 on average. So it was great. This one was next. It's called Nørwegian Style, and as you can see, it has sort of native people from, which for Americans apparently is a big deal, because we didn't really think about it. We thought, hey, it's Asian culture, you know, they will think we are cultural, but no, their reactions are, oh, this looks like some sort of Norwegian porn. And if you look inside, it has more statues of naked people. But I really didn't think about that. But they have a different attitude. So this